Greetings. My name is Peter Munro. I'm going to be your MC tonight for the second set at FisherPoets Gathering 2021, our Thursday night show. So welcome everybody. I'm glad you're here. FisherPoets Gathering has happened annually since 1998. This year, due to the plague, we're doing it online. The bad part of that is we miss seeing you, the audience, and we miss seeing each other, the performers. The good part is we do not have simultaneous shows, so we get to see all the artists who've come to perform. Before we get going, I invite you to visit www.fisherpoets.org to find out what else is happening at this year's gathering. There's a lot going on in addition to the evening performances. There are going to be some great workshops scheduled for Saturday, and you can find out at the website how to sign up for those. There are visual arts events going on, and you can find films and further performances from Fisher Poets that you'll be hearing tonight and Friday and Saturday. So Fisher Poets Gathering is, to me, has been about testifying to lives often lived out of sight, distant from those we love and all the rest of our human kin. And so tonight we're going to have a lot of fun with some notes of sadness, and while we celebrate fishers and members of the fishing community, and we invite you to enjoy right along with us. So without any more blither from me, let's welcome our first performer tonight. We've got Fred Bailey visiting us all the way from Ladysmith, British Columbia. And I figured this out in consultation with Fred. Fred is an offshore hippie sailor. He's also been a tug deckhand, a commercial fisherman, and he's just an awesome storyteller. So please welcome to the microphone, Fred Bailey.
Hey, everybody. Good evening to you from Ladysmith, sitting here looking out at the nearly full moon. It's a beautiful night, and it's wonderful to be here. Absolute kudos to everybody who's put this virtual performance together. It amazes this cyber caveman for sure. So I'm told we got to do some short, sharp gigs, and I'll start off with Herring Season Part 1. I want you to employ your imagination and hear old Stan Rogers in the background singing Tiny Fish for Japan. It's last Monday in February, northbound up the middle of the Strait of Georgia on a BC ferry, the coastal inspiration, heading home from an annual Fisher Poets Gathering. The midwinter sunlight has some warmth, but the wind is dense and cold and fine. Drawn toward the bow by music, I can hear traditional Acadian shanties accompanied with the throb of our huge engines, and there in the shelter of the forward observation lounge, a young man wearing a large homespun wool toque sits alone, playing an accordion. The acoustics under that glass are superb. I want to praise him, but cannot bring myself to interrupt, so I listen with hungry ears to songs I have not heard in decades, and I loiter on that starboard side, out of the wind, snapping pictures. Along the sharp, clear blue curve of the strait, I can see for 60 miles. On a parallel heading and a row miles long, an armada of seine boats parades northward. Each has a large power skiff in tow, every vessel full of optimism for the lottery, a chance to earn up to half a year's income, which often, after a wait of many weeks, may last for only minutes, with no guarantees, except that almost always the weather goes to hell that morning, with rain or snow and wind against the tide. Today, in the easy sunlight, there is an occasional glint reflected from a rolling boat's wheelhouse window, a white wake spreading out behind the fleet. In their warm cabins, the crews are lounging around the helm, drunk on anticipation, giddy with laughter, happy to be moving, heading to the grounds. The intensity of the annual drama building, herring season. Part 2. The fleet was jammed into the harbor waiting for the opening. Volcanic tensions mount over the next 6 weeks until finally DFO declares the sacred event would occur on the next Saturday. 2 of the boats were skippered by men who, for religious reasons, cannot work on their Sabbath. Their crews are shattered. And my last piece, Lunenburg, China. Wanting a quick dinner, I dove into the freezer and came out with a vacuum-sealed package of perfect, thin, square salmon fillets. Captain Highliner, Lunenburg, Nova Scotia. Well, what's next? The package face claimed wild-caught North Pacific salmon. Yeah, right, I thought as I began to mutter, hell, the Atlantic and the Pacific don't even smell the same. Then I read the fine print. Sourced in the North Pacific Ocean, filleted in China. Here in Canada, our messaging repeats in French, fileté en Chine. Our promise for over 115 years, Highliner has provided premium quality seafood product of China. The pink protein was dry and tasteless. Even the oil seemed pressed out of it. When did our industry become reduced to being a source for Asia? How do we sell them our small fish wholesale and buy back our salmon scraps retail? I shut my eyes and see abandoned canneries all along our coast. Forgotten trawlers languish and rot at our decrepit docks. So, Lunenburg, China, is it now? Well, I'm glad I'm the age I am. Good night, everybody.
Fred, it's so good to hear you again. Thank you for that. Our next performer comes to us from Palmer, Alaska, Harry Moore. Harry was born in Bristol Bay and was raised set netting. He has fished halibut and crab. Currently, he claims he's a drift netter. And please welcome to the microphone, Harry Moore.
Well, good evening, everybody. I tell you, sometimes I actually do pretend playing at drifting. And sometimes I do it all right. But sometimes I get that web in the wheel and it gets a little exciting. Well, at the start of every fishing season, by golly, we're busy trying to get off the blocks, trying to hit that water. Because those sockeye, they're coming and they're going. They're going to go by in a hurry. And that's what this song's all about, getting off the blocks. Here we go. Start with one, and then there's two. Get three finished, but more is due. I gotta get off these blocks, I gotta hit the dock. You come here late, you come here early. Well, it don't matter, you're in a hurry. I try to get it done in time to catch them fish this tide. Gotta get off these blocks, we gotta hit the dock. Gotta get off the blocks, we gotta hit the dock. St. Elmo had frames to do, now they didn't know there was more than two. And 12 frames later, what do you know? The boys will make the show. And Dave on the Caroline, now that engine it was mighty fine. Oh, we put it in, but it smokes a lot. I gotta get off these blocks. I gotta get off the blocks. I gotta hit the dock. Gotta get off the blocks. I gotta hit the dock. Come on now, we gotta go, we gotta hit those blocks below. Simon says, yo, today we're gonna set you in all the way. It's a falling tide and it's running hard, now we're bouncing across the bar. We toss the ball, now we fight for our show. It's time to let her go. We're off the blocks. 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 We're off the blocks, and now it's time to make her pay. Where we gotta get off these blocks, we gotta hit the dock. Gotta get off these blocks, we gotta hit the dock. All right, let's go fishing. How about it?
Thank you very much, Harry. That was wonderful. Our next performer is Annie Howell-Adams. She hails from Friday Harbor, Washington, and she is started out hand trolling in Cross Sound, which is big water, and then she ran her own power troller out of Sitka. And she's also fished black cod and halibut as well on some pretty classic boats. Please welcome to the microphone, Annie Howell-Adams.
This is a little bit different. This year, my presentation is written from the point of view of my boat. My salmon troller was called the Marvel. It was built in 1924. And this is the point of view of the boat. I was born in a shipyard in Coos Bay. I had nice lines. Everyone said so. My captain brought me presents. He made 2 bronze stars for my bow. His gifts were thoughtful and practical, like my bronze tiller and the bronze cleat for my stern post. He had a steady source of metal. Even my ballast was bronze. One winter, my captain took my steering wheel and brought it back inlaid with a circle of wooden diamonds. My captain gave me a diamond ring. He was very good to me. We were happy together fishing for salmon. At night, I kept watch and listened. Fish were boisterous, always yelling, waiting to smell their river. Some salmon schools were 20 miles long. My captain caught boatloads of salmon. That's because I put him on fish. Before electronics, fishermen were guided by their intuition, or they were lucky to have a boat like me. As seasons passed, everything changed. The ocean filled with noisy ships. I had to be vigilant in the shipping lanes. The mighty Columbia was dammed. Fish diminished. It became harder to put my captain on fish. One spring, he didn't take me out, nor the next. It was a dark time. I slumbered listlessly at the dock, waiting for my captain. Where was he? Another man took me to the fuel dock. He wasn't my captain, but I was ready to leave the confines of the harbor. The man never gave me anything. He took something. He chiseled out my bronze ballast and sold it. Then he poured in cement. He installed electronics. He didn't need me to listen for fish. He thought he could do it all himself, you know, the independent type. It was hard to build a new relationship. We managed to get along, but when he left me at the dock, I didn't mind. Thus began a series of strange men coming aboard and abruptly departing. A bearded man arrived and admired my bronze porthole. I winked and showed him my best feature, my horseshoe stern. What a beauty, he said, and he stuck a knife in my rib. A little soft here. Not bad, just needs a few new ribs. He hauled me out for an orthopedic rebuild. New knees, new ribs, refastened. Everyone admired me at the shipyard. After that, I had a fresh outlook. I felt frisky, ready to fish with the doctor. That's what I called him. After many good years, a young woman came aboard. I didn't know what she was, a tourist, a squatter. She gave me a present, a Turk's head on the top spoke of my wheel. She regalvanized my anchor chain. I could see she was serious. She bolted stringers under my deck beams to hold charts. We were going places that needed charts. Before I even heard the words, I knew we were headed to the fabled fishing grounds of Alaska. She gathered charms of good luck, a Canadian dime with the blue nose on it, an abalone shell, her father's copy of Hansen's handbook, and her mother's string of pearls. These amulets of luck and magic were strong, but I knew she was going to need more. She was young. That's not a crime. She was naive. That's not a crime either, but she was unprepared. It worried me. I had to watch out, watch for danger. I felt useful again as we set off for Alaska. Across open water, she calculated our position. Studying the chart, she was distracted from what loomed ahead and didn't see it. Like a medieval battering ram, a submerged deadhead only showed at the bottom of a swell. I veered a degree to port to miss it. My skipper turned white as a massive deadhead passed between my hull and the stabilizer. It would have cracked us open like an egg. My skipper claimed there was a guardian angel that sat on her shoulder, but really, it was me. I kept my skipper out of danger more than once. That's because she was good to me. She took me to Alaska where we drifted at night, cradled by the rise and fall of ocean swells. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. That was beautiful. Before we move on, I think it's time to say a few thank yous. The Fisher Poets Gathering would not happen without quite a lot of support, and this lovely evening is being made possible by grants and labor from KMUN Coast Community Radio, Tillicum Foundation, City of Astoria, Hip Fish Monthly, Coast Weekend, and the Astorian, and then some actual people: Alfred Landwehr, Judy and Milt Stewart, Michelle Abramson, Jonathan White. Thank you to all of you. Our next performer is from Astoria, Oregon. We are going to hear from Larry Thormahlen. Larry has operated tugboats for 42 years before retiring, and he's worked in a number of the 7 seas. He's got a lot of experience, especially in the north. Please welcome Larry Thormahlen.
Well, thank you, Peter. And my lot in life was to supply hard-to-reach harbors and transport fish and crab back to larger markets. And it was 42 years I spent at sea, you see. In 1961, now this was my first time to be paid to sail. In the late 50s, I sailed for free. I loved it so. I was sailing captain in 67 and retired in 03. When I sailed, the most often asked question was, do you ever see whales? In retirement, people only ask, do you miss sailing? So let me think on that. That's a hard question to answer. The romance of traveling deep into the Arctic, seeing vast herds of walrus, walking among musk ox on remote tundra-covered islands of the north. Then there was the tropics fringed with palms and squawking parrots and chattering monkeys. the not too peaceful Pacific, and the Atlantic. And then there was the crystal clear Caribbean. And now a pilot is coming out of a dark and dank jungle-covered river in a dugout canoe. We saw fish jumping from horizon to where we were. And hurry, hurry, Supply, Dutch Harbor, Bristol Bay, Naknek, Dillingham, Hagemeister Island. Now south to California, then north to St. Paul Island, right in the center of the Bering Sea, over to St. George Island to give them heating fuel. And while you're in the area, they said, Point Barrow and far beyond. And now off to Panama to get to Texas and Louisiana, and hurry, hurry. And then there was the overpowering smell of garlic at 5 a.m. coming through the ventilation system from the galley. And there's nothing like a giant of a sailor talking very earnestly to a wall heater, or a sailor who rarely slept for weeks and spooked the entire crew. Then there was the good mate who told his watch partner he was oh so very tired. So his watch partner slipped speed into his coffee. There's this kind sound of your mooring lines tightening on the bits, and you are at your home dock. Or there's being gently rocked to sleep in the bosom of the deep. Traveling through oh so scenic tree-covered islands. And too many thousands of sunsets and far too damn many sunrises. Hiking among archaeological sites in the Arctic, since you're at anchor for a time nearby. Then there was ice falling from the mast, a sure sign the weather is warming. And now there's mascara running as I have a talk with the errant cook. The time away from those you really care about, family and friends. No, it was the family. And there's nothing like an ex-con that's now your sailor who did 15 years for murder, sharpening a fire axe and glaring at the cook. Then the friendship of a laughing crew at meal times. You know, Chief Joseph said, I will fight no more forever. And I say, I will sail no more forever. Thank you for your time.
Larry, that was great. Thank you so much. Our next performer is going to be Butch Leman. Butch is coming all the way from Ninilchik, Alaska. And what you need to know about Butch is he's a sixth generation commercial fisherman. He's worked from the stern all the way up to the wheelhouse. He's crabbed, he's caught shrimp, and he has set netted all his life. Please welcome Butch Leman.
And contrary to popular belief, Ninilchik is in Alaska, not Washington. Peter said it right. I'm set netting anymore, and started out that way. And I've done a lot of different kinds of fisheries and a lot of different boats and a lot of different water, and ran boats for oil companies and spill cleanups and such. But I wanted to give a shout out to all my Cook Inlet fishermen, friends and family and partners, and appreciate the Georgie talking about the fish politics, because boy, that's our biggest fight. This song is a little bit different slant on fishing. It's about that summertime dockside cannery romance that turned out to be a little bit more. So I wrote this for a young lady I watched grow up, Yukana, and I called this song The Cannery Queen and the Forklift Driver. She was a cannery queen, he was a forklift driver. He liked to watch her, he drove by her. She was posing her questions with a clear-eyed vision of youth. Because he was older, he tried to be wise. He'd answer her questions just to look in her eyes. And on their coffee break, they'd sit in the corner booth. It started so naturally, they followed their heart to where it would lead. Sometimes it's just what you need if you're a forklift driver and a cannery queen. Well, the weeks went by and the nights grew cold. They were counting the days till the season was over, with each one wondering what the end of the season would bring. Would they stay together? Would they grow apart? Should he offer his hand? Would she give him her heart? They only knew they didn't really care what the others might think. It all came so naturally. They followed their heart to where it would lead. Sometimes you find just what you need with a forklift driver and the cannery queen. They put their money together and they found them some land. They built a little cabin with their own loving hands. They finished the roof just before the snow started fall. Well, it wasn't always easy. Sometimes it'd get rough, but they held to each other. It was more than enough. And 9 months later, heaven sent that little bundle of love. It all came so naturally. Well, they followed their heart to where it might lead. Sometimes you find what you need. The forklift driver loved the cannery queen. He was a forklift driver who loved the cannery queen. Just a little bit of cannery romance love song. Hope it made it all the way through. Thank you very much from Ninilchik, Alaska.
Thank you, Butch. That was great. So we got up next, also from Astoria, Oregon, Nancy. Well, wait a minute. I'm confused. It has Spokane, Washington here. You're going to have to sort us out, Nancy.
I don't have time to sort you out. 5 minutes max.
No, nobody has time to sort me out. Here's the important part. Nancy Cook works 7 seasons in Bering Sea ground fisheries, but she prefers working on Copper River Reds. She teaches at Clatsop Community College and spends summers in the Wrangell Mountains. Please welcome Nancy Cook.
So, I got my second Moderna shot yesterday because the hospital here thawed out too many shots and they were going to rot like a tote of bad fish. And I was in the right place at the right time. My whole family here in Spokane did get shot in the arm. And yesterday was my second shot. I feel a little seasick, a bit feverish, kind of like I was dipping salmon all night. I do miss you, beautiful people, but I feel lucky I see a light at the end of the tunnel. It's not over yet, though. I've been seeing Dutch harbor factories a lot in my Alaska feed. This would have been the time of year that I was up in Dutch. And 300 of 700 employees of Trident Akutan tested positive, and they got one nurse on site. It's a pretty dangerous situation. First time, it's more dangerous to be in the factory than to be on deck right now. So here's a little poem about that. We battened down the hatches, but we never called it lockdown. Those week-long steams north to Dutch from Seattle's Pike Place Old Town. Same, but different those days felt, with no one but the pod of orcas and 127 bodies who shared the slime line and the galley. One season, I even hot bunked with a girl from Tuksuk Bay. 6 on, 6 off, 6 weeks if we were lucky. And then the steam back south. Not a lick of social distance on a floating Pollock mothership. Some days I feel it, like a kick shift. Pandemic sounds a bit like Limerick, except nothing about COVID-19 flows off the tongue with rhythm, nor with rhyme. Halibut cheek, kittiwake beak, been on the ocean for 6 straight weeks. So I'm not going to sing that one, but that's one I often do. If you can see my green screen, I'm really tiny in mine, but if you can see my green screen, you're seeing the Copper River at the confluence with Chitna, where I end a writing workshop every summer, raft-based writing workshop. It's the best time a girl could have, but you can see the bridge there, and I'm going to read to you a little bit about my dip netting spot, which is if you head towards that bridge and climb into the hinterlands, you will get there. And this essay feels important to me right now. It's called Siltwater. I only have a case of sockeye canned up, nothing in the freezer. So I come to the Copper River in mid-September because the silver should be running. From the dark aisle of the Chitna Trading Post, Betty, the sleepy cashier, confirms, sure, silver should be running. Don't know how hard. On September 12th, 2001, I went to the Copper River for silver salmon, but I was looking for something more. For many of us from McCarthy, dip netting the Copper River is more like religion than sport, or even subsistence harvest. The long scramble up slate outcrops over down spruce, the long scramble up river, and then the short drop to cliffs at river's edge. These passages have become ritualized for me. I count on the Copper River to take me away from day to day, to dwarf my human worries, return me to a larger self. Parking my Subaru behind the bushes, strapping my backpack, grabbing the old rusty spike to pill myself over the slate edge, I'm more exhilarated than afraid. The route to Howard's Hole picks its way through prickly rose and high bush cranberry. My fingers are bloodied by berry juice within a few minutes of walking. When I do reach the right spot, 2 dip nets stashed behind a gnarled spruce tree serve as welcoming assurance. Seeing the pile of weathered netting makes me feel part of a wild renegade family. Above the fishing hole on the hill is a flat spot between 2 spruce, just large enough to pitch a tent. I've slept there while Howard dipped through the night, and I have dipped while others slept. Upstream a few meters is a big eddy tucked into the slate where my friend Elizabeth and I once tied off a raft to the butt end of a poplar. We floated down from where the river meets the road, pulled in to fill coolers with bright torpedo bodies of salmon, and then continued to our friends waiting at the bridge below. This is our Howell-Adams fishing hole, shared by a clan of friends in our McCarthy, Alaska community. On the stepping stone above the main hole, blood from former salmon harvest stain the slate. Tiny rose sacks cling desiccated to the stone, a reminder of summer's abundance. Fresh sockeye on bonfire coals, garden salads, and rhubarb pies. On the day after the attack on America, remember when 3,000 minus 4 felt like a lot of people to have died? On the day after that attack, I come to the Copper River because I crave the experience of wild, natural abundance. Today, I want to feel the crash of salmon slamming into my dip net, to witness that unchanged life force, spawn-driven fishes swimming upstream against the colossal current. Today, I need to be belittled by huge mountains and unending wind. This is the hard paragraph. On the day after the attack on America, I leave Chitina without any salmon in my backpack. My memories, this is a really long essay, by the way, you guys are only getting pieces. My memories of rafting adventure are joined with this day's request for patience and wild faith. Walking the trail back to the road, I feel the pack's emptiness against the small of my back. I feel the cold air on my skin, watch one lone fish wheel stutter in midair as wind competes with water in vehement velocity. I got one little part. On the banks of the Copper River, the winds of change blow through every minute of every day. Soon the gray silts will settle into the gentler stream of winter. The copper, I want to say this is important. In Alaska, we live surrounded by natural forces, sometimes dangerous, never malevolent. They keep us humble in our lives. That nature is so resilient. We're resilient as well. Next year, the copper will melt into its unsayable silty power. The salmon will swim like missiles against the almighty water. I dip my net full for this world. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Nancy. Before we move on, I got another set of thank yous. Actually, I just have some reminders about making everybody here miss meeting each other in person. I'll just say a few names and you guys check out how you feel. Astoria Brewing Company, formerly the Wet Dog, Kala Gallery, Columbia Theater, Liberty Theater, Fort George Lovell Showroom, the Voodoo Room, 1015 Theater, Labor Temple, Diner and Bar, Winecraft, Clatsop Community College, Pier 39, and the Hanthorn Cannery Workers Museum in the Columbia River Maritime Museum. Remember all those places, guys? We're going to get back there next year, I hope. Okay, so after Nancy, we're going to hear from Kat Murphy. Kat lives in Port Townsend, Washington. Kat owns and operates a power trawler that works in Southeast Alaska, a boat called the Grace. Kat also owns a direct market seafood business, Catfish Salmon Company. Please welcome Kat Murphy.
Thank you, Peter. Evening, everyone. This piece is called Stuck. We finally got into some good fishing in August. The second king opener was long this year, more of a marathon than a sprint. And of course, a 50-knot storm warning came on over the radio. I spent the evening studying charts and consulting friends, not wanting to run away from good fishing. Full of indecision, I didn't want to be caught in that blow, dragging anchor all night in some hidey hole that didn't live up to its reputation. The next day, one of the first boats to bail, We stacked our gear early and ran. On anchor that night, positioned to catch the tide up the Narrows at first light, I was lying down in my bunk, staring up at that leak I thought I had fixed that lands perfectly on my face when I'm sleeping. I could see the bead of water clinging to the wood, waiting to let go. Perfectly on cue, a drop of water then landed on my forehead. I questioned myself, tortured myself, as one more day of good fishing during a season like this can really turn things around. At times, my boat has made me feel free and powerful. Instead, I felt tired and cornered, scared to stay, frustrated to leave, frozen with indecision, stuck. This past year, I've been thinking a lot about the difference between being stuck, feeling stuck, and the places in between. My crew and I found ourselves stuck in Ketchikan last fall, waiting out a literal Arctic hurricane before we could cross Dixon Entrance. We drove down to Foggy Bay and bashing seas to anchor for the night. We woke up at 3 a.m. for the weather report, tucked our tails, and drove 6 hours back to town to wait it out in a torrential downpour of such magnitude that my running partner swore it was flattening the seas. I've been stuck untangling anchors on the ghosts of anchors past, busted seized bolts and hydraulic hoses, and have found myself multiple times trolling in place and sometimes backwards before I realized what was going on in some unanticipated currents. Just last week, I was taking out my starter, and whatever sadist designed the bolt patterns on those things, I applaud them. For the hours I was stuck backing them out. I even managed to get myself frozen inside my boat once. It was after my first troll season, and finances were tight, so I decided to live aboard. One winter morning, I woke up cold and stiff and in desperate need of the shorehead, as I had none aboard. I jiggled the handle and started to push the cabin door open, but nothing happened. I used more force, nothing. I pressed my cheek against the glass to try and see what was going on. It had been a rainy night and the temperature must have dropped below freezing. And with the addition of the howling north wind thrown into the mix, the line I used in the summer to tie my cabin door open flew sideways across the door in the middle of the night and froze into a puddle on my side deck, doing the exact opposite thing it was meant to do and trapping me inside. I felt my boat's claws sinking deeper into me. She was not going to let me go. We were stuck with each other. I felt resentment after everything we'd been through together this past fishing season. Are you really going to conspire with that icy north wind and trap me inside? I just spent 5 weeks this fall hauled out, painting and sanding and tending to your every need. I realized I had lost it. The memories of a challenging summer fishing season, a cold and lonely winter in a place that was not my home, and a screaming bladder, all joined forces in the shape of one powerful, angry kick at that door, freeing myself. Another drop of water fell into my face, this time directly between the eyes. Still doubting my decision to leave the fishing grounds, I lay in my bunk thinking. I was never stuck. A feeling that's meant to be felt, but then set free. Frozen in these microscopic moments, but if I could just zoom out of, would barely register on my radar, a blip on the screen. But zooming out is never going to happen for me. So the thing I hold on to when I feel trapped in the prison of my mind, where I'm frozen inside my boat, in a decision to stay or go, in a boat loan payment, in a lifestyle that causes equal parts devastation and elation, is that I'm free, and there's much to come. Hang in there. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kat. That was wonderful. Kat had the good fortune of leading into Shanghaied on the Willamette.
Arr.
On the Willamette is Gordy Euler and Jonathan Lay. They've been to every FisherPoets Gathering except the first. And so they're going to introduce their song. Please welcome Gordy and Jonathan, Shanghaied on the Willamette.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Great
Hey.
to be here.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks to everybody for
putting this together and making it happen. I miss seeing you in person, and I'm sure Gordy does too. So we'll do our best to keep this rolling in the tradition. But we did get together out on a dock floating on the Willamette River just before the ice storm hit here, and we recorded a couple of songs for you. So you'll see us in just a moment bobbing on the Willamette River among the ducks and swimming dogs, and we've got a couple of songs, one about paddling on the Willamette River, and a new one that Gordy's going to tell you about.
Yeah, we've been looking for a water skiing shanty, and there isn't one out there, so I wrote one. And I put the chorus to it in the chat so you could figure out what the words are. So without further ado, Shanghaied on the Willamette, pre-recorded from Portland.
All right, you ready?
I'm ready. You ready? Here we go.
Now, Captain Bligh, he was a fool because he treated his men so cruel. And then one day he said, for sport, the crew will row from starboard and port. With oar and sail, we can water ski all across the Pacific Sea. Bligh beat his men until they bled. Great discontent for old Bligh was bred. The crew took over to Bligh. They said, go row yourself until you're dead.
Row, row just as fast as you can go. Put the muscles in your dorsal for power in the arsehole. Row, row just as fast as you can go.
Now, Harbaugh and Samuelson rowed to France. They loved the sea and its romance, but rowing to Valparaiso, Chile, with a rowboat full of booze seems silly. And why march inland with an oar when your boat is seaward of the shore? None of these ventures are as fun as water ski and in the sun, but to get the speed you need for towing depends on how many folks are rowing.
Row, row just as fast as you can go. Put the muscles in your dorsal for power in the arsehole. Row, row just as fast as you can go.
Now it's summertime, the sun will bake, the boat's hitched up, it's off to the lake. You just can't wait to get away, out on the water to ski and spray. An old May West, so you won't get drowned, but your bathing suit just can't be found. Dad says, hey, we'll ski in the nude, but he can't start the Evan Rude. The kids say, skip it, Dad, let's go, but you say, no, I'll ski, you row.
Row, row just as fast as you can go. Put the muscles in your dorsal for power in the arsehole. Row, row just as fast as you can go.
So skip the storm and skip the doubt. Don't run in circles, scream and shout. Don't say you're sick and go below. Grab an oar and start to row. The coxswain gives command to stroke. Blades through the water start to smoke. Pulling together is great. Admit it, just after the skier has just jumped in. Work is hard, the pay is scanty, but you gotta love a short stroke shanty. Row,
row just as fast as you can go. Put the muscles in your dorsal for power in the arsehole. Row, row just as fast as you can go.
You gotta
row, row just as fast as you can go. Put the muscles in your dorsal for power in the arsehole. Row, row just as fast as you can go. In summer the river is lazy and slow. Sometimes we drift, sometimes we paddle. Sometimes we can't see the riverbed below. Sometimes we get out and walk on the gravel. Up in the morning in the early light, the first splash of water makes you shiver. Then you stroke to the left, swing to the right, paddling down the Willamette River. Up ahead and on the right, is that a blue heron or a driftwood? Then he takes wing with a choking cry when we get 50 feet from him. Then it's up in the morning in the early light, the first splash of water makes you shiver. Then you stroke to the left, swing to the right, paddling down the Willamette River. Some people load themselves like mules up the dusty trails they totter. I'd rather load up my canoe, leave the hard work to the water. Up in the morning in the early light, the first splash of water makes you shiver. Then stroke to the left, swing to the right, paddling down the Willamette River. But there's something about a river trip that clears your thoughts with the currents flowing. If you're well worn, cares the slip, because the river always knows just where it's going. Up in the morning in the early light, the first splash of water makes you shiver, then a stroke to the left, swing to the right, paddling down the Willamette River. Up in the morning in the early light, the first splash of water makes you shiver, then a stroke to the left, swing to the right, paddling down the Willamette River.
Shanghaied and Willamette, a stalwart crew for FisherPoets Gathering. They play a lot of places as well, other than our FisherPoets Gathering. Okay, got a few more thank yous to slip in before we move along. A lot of help comes to us from Clatsop Community College, Oregon Folk Life Network, Astoria Warrenton Chamber of Commerce, Astoria Downtown Historic District Association. Thank you so much to all of those entities. We couldn't do it without you. And it's really, every year it's been a beautiful experience to come to Astoria and get that warm welcome from the town. So thank you to all of you. Our next performer is Meezie Hermansen, one of my favorites. As MC, I'm not allowed to tell you who's my favorites or not, but Meezie's one of them. And she's a lifelong Cook Inlet set netter, and when she's not busy killing salmon, she's a small animal veterinarian. Please welcome Meezie Hermansen.
You are called red, or sometimes blueback, my precious little sockeye. But that is not the Cook Inlet salmon I know. Death darkens your dorsum to a navy blue, but in life, dime bright body bedazzled as aurora green dances down your spine. You reel through the ocean like the northern lights ripple across this sky. Silvery scales, a galaxy agleam. As you near the river, the mix of fresh and salt water changes your once luminous body, and you temporarily take on muted purple tones. But by the time you reach the spawning grounds, you glow once again. Now, a vibrant red capped with forest green. And before you die, you emit fiery orange spheres filled with the future. All the colors displayed throughout a lifetime, and we tend to narrow it to one. My splendid little sockeye, you are the supernova of the seas. This next one is called Not So Fast. The things you do without thinking, things you don't realize until you start fresh with Green Crew. And you have to break down the steps, then break them down further into smaller chunks, more precisely. People say, show, don't tell, but it is impossible not to do both. Arms spread apart, you pause for attention, then start in. Right hand over left. Make a loop. You should say, take the free end, but no, you can't help yourself. Before you can pull it back, it pours forth like a wind-driven tide. There you stand with this young man, and as your hands move slowly but steadily, you hear the words spill out in accompaniment. The rabbit pops out of the hole and goes round the tree. That one for people who aren't relying on knots, that's about tying a bowline. I'm going to leave you with this one. It's about the first fish pick my dad carved for me when I was in early single digits, and I still have it. It's too dinky to be useful for anything, but it's a treasure. This one is called Tools of the Trade. Sometime after I was born, I learned to walk. And shortly after I learned to walk, I was given boots that fit and gloves that don't. This is the world out of which I was grown. When I started off, I was far from swift, with a fish pick honed from a piece of drift. The dull bent nail lashed with a whipping of twine. It was carved perfectly fit to fit this hand of mine. The deep red paint matched all those gills of the salmon I'd pick as I picked up skills. Dad made them custom. In my hand it stayed. Became my first tool of the trade. Now, I'm all grown and my dad is gone, but in my life he still lives on. And sometimes it's the little things you miss so much. Like that little red pick that you used to clutch. There's picks at the gear shed. They have them for sale, but you'll find out quick as one flies over the rail that the factory picks all sink like a stone. They don't float like the ones Dad lovingly honed. No, when you drop one, which you know you'll do, it'll sink out of sight down deep in the blue. Each one that goes sailing, caught up in the mesh, well, that's $7 sent to Bangladesh. I look back now on this life I've had. Nothing fit better than that pick, carved by my dad. And aren't we the same when you think it through? I'm carved original and so are you. Though the world tries to make us factory cut, here's the secret. You know what? Be the best yourself you can be. Not just another in the bin you see, for the world needs your heart as it is made. So do your best with your tools of the trade. Thank you to everyone who made this possible. This is awesome. Take care.
I'm carved original and so are you. Thank you for that, Meezie. That was great. Okay, Jimmy Kasner, Newport, Oregon, is going to sing for us. Jimmy spent 25 years running midwater trawlers in the Bering Sea, and he spent 12 years coming to FisherPoets Gathering. Please welcome Jimmy Kasner.
I spent half my lifetime out on the ocean. That's the name of this song. I'd like to dedicate it to Mr. Dave Densmore, one of my oldest best friends, and man I call big brother. Here you go, Dave. They say Mother Ocean chooses the sailors, ain't the other way around. And for everything you've ever lost, something new's always found. Now I lost family and friends, I lost brothers in arms, lost my head and my heart, the woman's charm. But I got my bearings and I found true north. Found everything I was looking for. I found myself and I lost sight of the shore. And I went out on the ocean, out on the sea, where the wind and the waves and the moon and the stars keep me company. Out on the ocean, on that wild deep blue sea. It's the only place in the world I've ever been free. I grew up a stranger on a farm far away from the sea. Always surprised at the smiling young cowboy staring back from the mirror at me. I told him I was a cowboy, and in my blood ran the salt of the sea. And I told him someday my ship would come in, take me where I long to be. Out on the ocean, out on the sea, where the wind and the waves and the moon and the stars keep me company. Out on the ocean, on that wild deep blue sea. It's the only place in the world I've ever been free. And you know I still believe in the power of love, and music is food for your soul. And I'm still a dreamer after all these years, 'cause you know dreamers never grow old. They go out on the ocean, out on the sea, where the wind and the waves and the moon and the stars keep me company. Out on the ocean, on that wild deep blue sea. It's the only place in the world I've ever been free. When I die, don't you bury me, oh, in some deep dark hole. I belong to the ocean, let it cradle my soul. Go on, burn my body, have one last party with me. And when the whiskey's all gone and the tales have been told, you know where I'll be. I'll be out on the ocean, out on the sea, and where the wind and the waves and the moon and the stars, I'll keep you company out on the ocean, on that wild deep blue sea. It's the only place in the world I've ever been free. Lord, it's the only place in the world I've ever been free. That was out on the ocean. Ooh. Thank you all. That was absolutely a wonderful evening. It's just been great. Really have enjoyed it. Thanks to everybody that put this thing together and making it happen.
Thank you, Jimmy. I'm a big fan now. I haven't heard you before this particular Fisher Poets Gathering, so a big treat for me. Okay, we've got a real Fisher Poets Gathering stalwart next in the lineup. Our very own Joel Brady-Power, hailing from Bellingham, Washington. He's part of a team that runs Power Troller FV NERCA. Tella Adson is the other part. Joel's been working with that on that boat since before he could walk. I got permission from him to say that. So I did port sampling on that boat before Joel was born. I remember when that little kid showed up on the boat. So this is kind of cool for me. Please welcome to the microphone, Joel Brady-Power.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, and thanks to all of you out there participating in this experiment. Hopefully the first and last virtual Fisher Poets Gathering. So I'm going to sing you guys a song tonight, and it's a little different. It's not particularly fishy, but this has been a really crazy year. You know, we basically came home from Fisher Poets last year straight into lockdown and a pandemic, and the early days of the pandemic were really a struggle for me. It was kind of a dark time, and you know, there was just so much uncertainty in the world, and just even knowing how to move through it seemed like a challenge. So I kind of had to focus on moving my focus in closer, and so I wrote this song, I guess, as a way to kind of grapple with that. I mean, there's been so many challenges, I feel like, with this pandemic in our lives, but you know, I never thought that I'd be able to perform at Fisher Poets and not have to wear pants. So, silver linings. This song is called Learning How to Swim.
Cracks in the light, let the darkness in. I watch the sun sink into the sea. Hold tight the faith, she'll come back to me. When hope is lost adrift, so far from the shore, I don't know how to reach her anymore. I watch the sun sink into the sea. Hold tight the faith, she'll come back to me. 'cause I want to believe the sun will rise again. Here in the moonlight, I'm learning how to swim. Stumbling through the land of broken dreams, where everyone just wants to be seen. I watch the sun sink into the sea. Hold tight the faith, she'll come back with me. 'Cause I want to believe the sun will rise again. Here in the moonlight, I'm learning how to swim. I'm learning how to swim. Please, my friend, if you see someone in pain, resilience is hard to maintain. I watch the sun sink into the sea. Hold tight the faith, she'll come back to me.
Thanks, guys, and I really hope we're looking at all of your beautiful faces next year. Take care.
Beautiful song, Joel. Thanks for making that for us. Thanks for performing it for us. Okay, everybody, we're getting into the home stretch. We got 3 performers left, but before we launch them, I'm going to say one last round of thanks, because there are a few people here who deserve extra special recognition. First up, we got Amanda Gladich and her Sea Grant colleagues, Jamie Doyle, Megan Claybacher, and these guys are running a really complicated show behind the scenes, and they're just doing a heroic job pulling off this digital event. I don't think any of them had any idea they were going to get shoved into these kind of roles, and they've just really risen to the challenge. So thank you, Amanda, and the rest of your team. It's just been wonderful. And then John Broderick and Jay Speakman have made the FisherPoets Gathering a thing of beauty for so many years, and they seem to be pulling it off once again, even in this time of plague. So that's Fishers for you. They keep soldiering on, be it storm or virus. Thanks, John. Thanks, Jay. Okay, next up in our home stretch here is Jon Lee. John lives in Portland, and he's a 4th generation in the Pacific Northwest. He hails originally out of Lower Columbia, and he tells me he comes from a long line of Chinese cannery workers on the slime line, and that is actually a really critically important part of North Pacific fishing history, is the role of Chinese workers, and it often gets overlooked. I was really glad John was able to represent that part of our heritage. So thank you, John, and please welcome Jon Lee to the microphone.
Yeah, I'm honored to be part of this FisherPoets Gathering, because in truth, I'm an imposter. I'm, like I said, I'm neither a fisher nor a poet. I'm really pretty much a carpenter and songwriter. So I'm going to add this one here. And this song is about, I'll be moving actually down to the Lower Columbia on the Long Beach Peninsula in about a month. And it's just a little ways down from a town called Oysterville. And this song's about certain sensuous, saline, slimy oral pleasures, okay? You can taste the ocean, taste the sea, taste that briny mystery. The wonders of the world just run through you and me. And deep within she holds a treasure, a poem of passion and perfect pleasure. Mother of pearl, please open wide. Show me what you got inside. And she says, suck me, shuck me, eat me raw. Tasty on the tongue, I'm easy on the jaw. Slurp it, slop it, slip it on the craw. Shuck me, suck me, eat me raw. See, I have traveled all around the world. I fell in love with a girl from Oysterville. She works by the water, she smells like the bay. She brings home a bushel at the end of the day. She's my ocean, I'm her sea. Love's just a briny mystery. I count my blessings, I bless my luck. My girl Pearl really loves to shuck. She says, shuck me, suck me, eat me raw. Tasty on the tongue, easy on the jaw. Slurp it, slop it, slip it on your craw. Shuck me, suck me, eat me raw. She says, shuck me, suck me, eat me raw. Tasty on the tongue, easy on the jaw. Slurp it, slop it, slip it down your craw. Shuck me, suck me, eat me raw. Well, you can taste the ocean, taste the sea. Taste that briny mystery. The wonders of the world just run through you and me. She's my ocean, I'm her sea. Love's just a briny mystery. I count my blessings, I bless my luck. My girl Pearl really loves to shuck. She says, shuck me, suck me, eat me raw. Tasty on the tongue, easy on the jaw. Slurp it, slop it, slip it down your craw. Shuck me, suck me, eat me raw. She says, shuck me, suck me, eat me raw. Tasty on the tongue, easy on the jaw. Slurp it, slop it, slip it down your craw. Shuck me, suck me, eat me. That's what I like. See y'all next year with the band Slime Line. We'll be back.
Oh, John. Naughty, naughty. I'm going to have to go find my oyster tonight. Okay. We gotta keep moving here. We got next in the lineup is Dave Densmore. Dave is one of the great stalwarts, one of the great founders of FisherPoets Gathering. And to quote the man himself, I've landed millions of pounds, which I believe. And so please, I'm just not going to say any more about him because he's so well known to us all. Please welcome Dave Densmore.
Thank you, Peter. On the East Coast, back many years ago when they were sailing ships and dories fishing, there was a guy named Howard Blackburn, flew away from his schooner. And he rode for 3 days and nights, wintertime, and made it onto the beach. But on the way in, blinding snowstorms, but on the way in, his dory mate told him, give up, Howard, you're never going to make it. He made it. His dory mate died. There's some friends of mine back there in the Souls of the Sea. Frank Tedasco wrote a song about it, and the chorus is, you row with your heart, not with your hands. And that's kind of the way I've lived my life. And I've thought about it a lot. And you know, it doesn't matter if you're a fisherman, logger, teacher, cowboy, it doesn't matter. If you love your profession, you're rolling with your heart. And that's kind of a little bit about what this song is, or this poem is about. The truck's headlight glance through dark early morning mist. I've long since knuckled sleep from my eye with a hard clenched fist. Slipped out of a sleeping house and quietly fired my old truck, nursing a steaming cup of coffee that won't get spilled with any luck. It's hours yet till daylight when the landsmen begin to move. By then I'll be well offshore, settled into the morning groove. Parking lot's empty, except for one quietly idling car. Ghostly exhausts curl through its lights, don't seem to shine out too far. Suppose he's saying goodbye to his wife. Got up to bring him here. Guess they just can't afford 2 rigs. Scarce money comes too dear. My boat is silently waiting, an old and trusted friend. Been doing this for so long, can't imagine it'll ever end. I swing across the dew-damp rail and feel my cares just slip away. Why I feel such a part of her is hard for me to say. The engine rumbles softly, feels like the beating of her heart. Check the glow of her running lights, gleaming through the dark. Start that first pot of coffee and linger by stove's friendly heat. Once again, becoming one with this boat as I absorb the engine's beat. The radar's glow from the wheelhouse and the radio's soft static buzz adds the feeling I'm crashing awake, a mistress that I love. Yes, I love those early morning starts, but some think it much too early to show a spark. But I love the promise of a new day when I'm leaving in the dark. Well, the off season can be rough. Inactivity and short funds compound the strain. Harsh words and harsher feelings escalate like a runaway train. Till finally it comes down to, I don't want you here no more. So I pack my gear, gather my stuff, and head on out the door. They say it's darkest before the dawn, and that certainly does hold true. But there's promise of a new day when that young sun comes burning through. Well, I guess I'll be living on the boat, though that prospect's not too stark. Nothing new, just once again, I'm leaving in the dark. This last verse, this last poem, a few years ago, somebody came up to me in Kodiak and said, we've been thinking and figuring, and we think you're the oldest working seine skipper on the island. I was kind of surprised because just a very few years ago, I was the youngest skiff man. I was 12 years old, and the cannery tried to run me off the boat, and the skipper said, he goes, we all go, where you want your boat? I stayed. Bought my first boat when I was 13, and when I was 23, I was running king crab boats in the Bering Sea. I fished from California to the Bering Sea all up and down. So, but thinking about that, I decided this little poem come to mind, and I want to dedicate it to all my peers, my age. Some are retired, some are thinking about retiring, and some like me think retirement is an obscene word that shouldn't be uttered in public. It's simply called As the Net Slipped Off the Stern. I've lived my life on deck and bridge, from water watched the seasons turn. So many changes come and gone as the net slipped off the stern. I once was young and bulletproof, the fallacy I'd yet to learn. But time flew by on silent wings as the net slipped off the stern. Loves have come and loves have gone. Though I never met the burn, yet changes came unbidden as the net slipped off the stern. Children came, grew, and left. That love I never meant to spurn, just lived my life as best I could as the net slipped off the stern. Slipped from youth through middle age, but there's still much for which I yearn. But time's catching up, and I'm growing old as the net slips off the stern. Yes, I've spun out my life on a pitching deck and watched as life's seasons turned. So many changes come and gone as the net slips off the stern. Thank you, and thank you to everybody. Peter, you're up next. I'm out.
That was awesome, Dave. Always glad to hear your work. And I'm glad you ran through some of those fisheries. I mean, you have covered a lot of ground, man. Yes, I am up next. I'm the last performer for the evening. And just to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm a retired fisheries scientist, and my whole career was spent catching and counting fish in the North Pacific and Bering Sea. And we use the data to estimate annual quotas, bottom fish, ground fish. So it's been my privilege to spend years of my life working in close partnership with fishers from the back deck up to the wheelhouse. And the best work I've ever done was in the winters. I spent cod pot fishing in the Bering Sea, Unimak Pass up to Amac. And this poem comes out of those experiences. Just to warn you, this poem has some real pain in it. I believe that when we look right at uncomfortable or ugly things, if we don't turn away, we might find our way to beauty. And so in that spirit, I tried to make this poem as true as I could, even though it's fiction. So you might notice these terms, mild steel, and that's what the frames of crab pots are made of. And fulmar is a very common offshore seabird. It's my favorite bird, in fact. This is called Lullaby in Stormlight. I have heard the slamming of hatches. I have witnessed the railman's grunt and heave. I have stood by while my deck boss catches our chief in his arms, too drunk to leave the elbow room on his own. I've staggered under the weight of a young deck ape who'd mourned his divorce with vodka, then tried to bugger an obese and weathered whore, her scorn for his failure crowning him like Jesus. I have seen storm light burn black as a Bible, an illuminating darkness, its locus the eye of a lone sailor unable to look away. I've listened while screamer captains ream their boys on deck. I have lifted my eyes to the wheelhouse high among fulmars, while a skipper on the loud hailer riffed hard and long on themes conceived in anger. Purified by wind, assayed by fatigue, a fierce language has pierced my ears, drawn thin syllables of labor and hurry, of danger and fear, of rage and despair in God's worst place in creation to be alone, where sailors groan in their sleep, piled up like puppies while we steam down to the next string of pots, their slickers cinched tight to their chins, hoods up, rain pants taped snug about their boots, slumber come quicker than God's wrath, or gales, or a captain's rant, tossed in exhaustion's odd dreams. I have been lulled by the slamming of mild steel. I have learned fear as the barometer plummets. Gulls have shat on the hood of my foul weather gear. The deck boss has poured me my coffee. The chief has lit a cigarette and leaned back and drawled. Gruffly, the railman has offered me a seat in the doghouse. Green water has broken across deck, and we wait. God hath spoken. The whole ocean shivers, heaped in our rain gear until the storm abates. We sleep while our vessel booms and quivers. Okay, you guys survived that one. That's it. That's the show. Thank you for coming tonight. It's been a beautiful evening. I'm so grateful that we got to have a digital Fisher Poet gathering during this pandemic. But I can speak for all the Fisher Poets. We really miss you who are out in the audience. You are the best part of the show for us. And we thank you for making your way to join us in these exceedingly weird times. Right now, we can't really see each other when the poems are rolling or the songs are flowing, but we know we're all here to honor maritime lives, and we're grateful to you and the audience for adding to the celebration. Please come again tomorrow night and Saturday night, and in the meantime, don't drive and drink safely. Good night.